a silent warrior and his wolf. Here's your look at the Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series, Snake Eyes and Timbur Alpha Commandos. The Snake Eyes and Timbur figures come ready for action with multiple points of articulation for high posability and character-inspired accessories. And with custom artwork by Wiley Beckert, the G.I. Joe Classified Series Snake Eyes and Timbur Alpha Commandos package will make a mark on shelves. Before we get a closer look at Snake Eyes and Timbur, the first thing I'd like to do is thank the folks over at Hasbro that provided this as well as other G.I. Joe Classified Series figures that we've been looking at in the last couple of reviews. We're going to go ahead and figure out just how tall the figures stand. I'm going to start things off first with Snake Eyes, putting the ruler up to the very top of his head. The figure stands 6.5 inches, or about 16, just a little over 16. We're going to go maybe with 16.5 centimeters tall. We're also going to do the same thing with Timbur. As you can probably guess it, Timbur's going to be a little bit smaller. Timbur is 2 3/4 of an inch tall, or 7 centimeters tall. Just going to move Timbur out of the way here for a second and free up a little bit of space to bring in some of the other G.I. Joe Classified Series figures that we've already had a look at. Here he is, Snake Eyes, next to the Alley Viper, and here he is also as well next to the Battle Android Trooper, or Cobra Bat. When you do compare Snake Eyes with the other two figures, Snake Eyes does come up a little short. Certainly not skill set. I would imagine he'd be able easily to handle his own against either one of them. But he does certainly come up short a little on the physical side, as the figure is the smallest of the three figures that we've had a look at. Welcome back, by the way, Timbur. I thought maybe before we would actually look at his loyal hound, we would start things off a little bit smaller instead, and look at the weapons that come included for Snake Eyes. Starting first with a little bit of firepower, Snake Eyes comes included with an Uzi 1948. It's all molded here in black plastic, and while the other two guns that we're about to have a look at both have removable magazines, unfortunately the Uzi does not. Instead, it's molded all in the black plastic. The original 80s Real American Hero line would have been still molded in the plastic that Hasbro would have chosen for those accessories. But in this case, being the fact that these are scaled up sized weapons, I think they would have afforded a little bit of extra paint. I certainly don't want a colorful looking Uzi, but at the very least, it would have been nice if they add a little bit of silver or scuffing or something on this so that all the weapons didn't look like they were brand new. This can fit into his hand, by the way. No-brainer, I'm sure. Moving on to the next weapon, and my personal favorite. I was trying to figure out what gun this was, and the only thing I could come up with, it kind of looks like a Brugger & Tomet APC-223. Again, it's all molded here in black plastic, but unlike the Uzi, this one actually does have a removable magazine. I don't know if you can actually see it or not, but there is a bullet, a single bullet that's molded on the end of it, but unfortunately no additional gold paint to separate it from the rest of the magazine. And that just slides into the bottom of it. The last weapon he comes included with, I drew a bit of a blank trying to identify what this one was. If anybody knows, let me know down below in the comments section. But like the other two, or like the one that we looked at earlier, this one does have a removable magazine. Once again, an unpainted bullet on the end of the cartridge. Again, that just slides into the bottom of it, and all the weapons can be housed on top of Snake Eyes, or in his hands. There is actually no place of the things we just finished looking at that actually attach to him. He doesn't have a backpack, so therefore there really isn't any pegs or anything that those can clip onto. The next things, though, however, do attach to Snake Eyes, not only in his hands, but also on his costume. He comes included with a small hunting knife. It's nice to see at least they added a little bit of paint in this case, more darker gunmetal gray for the blade. The handle is still done in the molded black plastic, but at least they painted the blade. This can fit into his hands, or, which you can also do as well, picking the figure up. Just off to the side, there's a little holster, and you can just take the knife and slide it in. I say that in such a way that it just sounds like it's super easy to do, but actually, you know, you do have to put a little bit more pressure to fit the knife in. I thought for a second I was doing it the wrong way, so I flipped it around the other way, and I even think that this is the right way to go in, but still, it's tight to get that knife holstered onto the side of his leg. The figure also comes included with a handgun. And the handgun is nicely sculpted. It doesn't have a removable clip down below removable magazine, but still a nice molded looking gun. And this can either, again, be held in Snake Eyes' hands, or he can also have this little holster on this side of his leg as well. Now, the thing about this gun, though, is you can see there's a big package, like a little travel pack that he's got on the side of his belt there, probably for carrying supplies, or a medic pack. The gun is a little harder to kind of get around the medic pack. I'm going to go and just assume it's a medic pack. It's a little harder to get the gun kind of tucked in there, but once it's down, it's far enough in that it doesn't seem to impede the figure's leg articulation. The gun, or the knife, does give you a little bit more problems, especially when it comes to giving him those splits. If you want to give Snake Eyes the splits, I would probably recommend removing the knife first before doing that. The other thing that the figure comes included with is a silencer. Now, the silencer has a hole on the end of it, and it does, actually, you know what, I should probably not have put the gun in just yet. Let's just remove the gun, put the figure down here for a second. And the silencer does fit onto the end nozzle, just like that, of the handgun. It also, go ahead, you can take it and put it on the end of the Uzi as well, like that. The other two guns, even though there is a hole on the end of it, I don't know if you can actually see it. See, there's a little hole on the end of this gun, and there's also a hole on the end of the Brugger. There is no option for the silencer to attach to that, because really what you would want is a peg instead of a hole. See, there's no way to actually attach that. But at least there's a place to store that also. Right next to the place where we just finished putting the pistol, see there's a little open hole there. You can take then the silencer and fit this in. I'm deciding instead to do it from the bottom instead from the top, because just from the top it's a little harder to kind of get it around that pack. So I'm going to instead slide it from the bottom. So at least really, he can hold his knife, he can hold his pistol, and he can hold his silencer, all housed onto the figure's body. And then of course the rest of the guns you can easily just decide for yourself which guns you want to put in his hand. Let's go ahead and take the Brugger. Actually, that's not the one. Grab that one and put that into his hand. And at least they've sculpted the hand in such a way that it looks like he's sort of lining up to the trigger. And we do the exact same thing maybe with the Uzi for the time being. While Snake Eyes is packing firepower here, we're going to just put the figure down here for a second. Kind of want to move our attention over here to Timbur. I'm going to just move the figure back a little bit. It's nice to certainly see Timbur actually get a sculpted treatment. I also feel like in a case like this, they probably could remold this. Probably not use necessarily the wolf's head, but they probably could easily use the body for like another G.I. Joe release. I'm kind of thinking Law and Order. Why not? They could easily reuse at least this part of the body, retool a brand new tail, retool a brand new head, at least from this part up. And they probably could use that for that figure as well. Now, it does have two different head sculpts. One thing I do like is that they've actually put little war wounds on Timbur's face. It's also a little unsettling, the fact that the eyes glow when you've got the light hitting it just the right way. See right there as I'm just turning it back and forth. But it has a few scars on the side of his face. You got to imagine that that would tick off Timbur quite a bit. There is also an alternate head sculpt, which happens to be this one right here. This is Timbur after he's been a little ticked off. To change out the heads, all you have to do is just grab the head and remove it from the ball joint. It's actually pretty easy. And then just replace it with the brand new head. Now, this head I found was a little more difficult to get in place. And even now, just doing it, I would have thought that I would have got it already working by now. But still having real difficulty getting this in place. It's almost like they don't have enough allotted space. I almost would have wished that the peg was a little bit longer, but I'm going to have to probably heat that up a little bit more. I have already heated this up, but I guess I didn't heat it up enough to give you the extra alternate head sculpt. But that's definitely a much cooler looking Timbur. I'm going to have to work on that, I think, before the end of final looks. But that just attaches onto the end of the figure. Let's just go back to the defaulted head sculpt for the time being, because that was the easiest of the two. For the articulation, I guess before looking quickly at the articulation, nice sculpting on the body here of Timbur. The darker color fur. That was one thing that worried me. Not worried me, but always puzzled me about the original G.I. Joe cartoon. G.I. Joe, it's in that episode, The Masked Device, Snake Eyes found Timbur. And he went back to headquarters, and I think everybody already knew the name of the dog. How would they know the name of the dog if Snake Eyes was a mute? If anybody knows, let me know down below in the comment section. Maybe he did say it. Maybe not Snake Eyes said it, but somebody learned along the way, oh, the dog's name is Timbur. Maybe one of the Joes just guessed his name. Is his name Timbur? And Snake Eyes just sort of pointed at what would have been his nose. Anyways, though, for the articulation on Timbur, we're going to go back to the defaulted head. Head rotates all the way around. It does hinge up, down, and also back and forth. There's also a secondary ball joint right here, just before we actually get to the shoulder blades. And that also allows this to rotate back and forth and also hinge it this way as well. The back tail, of course, does have articulation. You can move that out, rotate it all the way around. And as you can already see as well, he does have like a mid-body articulation point, a nice ball joint that allows, actually, you can curve the body around, or you can have it just straight if you want to. I kind of actually like it just slightly turned, where you can see the back of his body sort of just off to the side. Each of the individual legs, by the way, are also on ball joints, so you can move those out. the front end as well as the hind legs. You can also move them forward and back this way. And then there's a back knee bend. Would you consider that a knee bend on a dog? Yes, we're going to go with that. There's a knee bend here, and there's a knee bend also at the back in the same place. And then this one does also have a hinge joint right here, lower down, which this one doesn't have because the legs are a little bit shorter. It has that same knuckle joint, but it doesn't have this section right here because, again, it's a little bit shorter. I guess it does have technically a little bit further down. So, okay, yeah, 2 and 2, 2 and 2. And then he also does have foot articulation. It's nice to see, actually, that they did put in posability for little tiny paws, little tiny wolf paws. Those hinge back and forth, and you can also move them back and forth this way as well. Really, really happy with the look of Timbur. Got to think that they're probably going to reuse that at some point down the road for another release. Okay, so let's move back to Snake Eyes here. Going to go ahead and remove the guns from his hands. And we'll get a closer look at the figure. Now, it's certainly more earlier looking Snake Eyes. Ironically enough, the whole funny backstory about Snake Eyes was when Hasbro was first developing the figure, they came to the decision that one figure from the line would have to be sacrificed on paint and kind of accessories, and they decided to go with Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes, as a result of it, was all molded here in black plastic, but the funny thing about it, Snake Eyes proved to be the more popular character of the G.I. Joe line. Fancy that. So the neat thing about Snake Eyes, though, is that he does have a lot of layers going for him, but he's basically an all-black character. This design, certainly, of him, going back to the idea of the mass device, I hope at some point they re-release this guy in that blue color scheme, maybe with a little bit areas on his body that are glowing because of that little cylinder he retrieves in the woods. The figure does have, again, some nice-looking sculpting for it. If you don't mind for the fact that this character of Snake Eyes is all black, a little bit of gray could have gone a long way. I mean, I get the idea that his main body is primarily going to be all black, but maybe just throw in something in there, whether it be like the fastened sections on the back of his straps, maybe paint those in silver, paint something on the vest, or for example, that could have done a little bit of silver, a little bit of gray, just to kind of break that up a little bit. But yeah, it's a lot of black, but at least to the credit of the figure, it does have sculpting where it counts. Like you can see, just the vest alone, I'm going to move his arms out of the way, it's a little bit easier to see it. Just the vest alone, how much detail that they put in there. Sections where additional magazines in your imagination would be housed, some additional pockets down up and down below, and again, all these little pocketed areas all around his body. Again, he's got the little medic. I'm going to go with the idea that this is a medic pack on the side of his belt. Nice texturing done also to his legs, both his knee guards, shin guards down below. Even like these little scratches, for example, could they maybe have gone in there and added a little bit of silver? Just something, just to break that up. Again, I'm not knocking for the fact that the figure has so much black going for him, but it just would have been nice if they added a little bit something extra. I mean, right here is about the only place, on a grenade of all things, there's a little bit of additional paint. Other than that, though, it's really an all-black character. As for the articulation, though, on Snake Eyes, we're going to start things off first with his head. Head rotates all the way around, and not only is it a head ball joint, but also, I don't know if you can actually see it or not, there's a hinge joint right underneath that allows a little bit of extra mileage for the head, so it can move quite a bit all the way around. In addition to that, as you've already seen, he does have a ball joint at the base of the neck. That allows the neck to give an additional bit of mileage. We can rotate it all the way around. Now, his upper torso is going to be a thing that's a little bit more limited. If you were here in person, you'd be able to squeeze the torso and feel it's a little bit of a softer plastic that they've used here. More so it's the vest over top of his harder plastic body, but it does really eliminate a lot of the articulation. You can kind of get things going down below here in the waist area, but yeah, a lot of it is really restricted because he's got so much extra padding over top of his body. As for his arms do come out comfortably at a 90-degree angle bend. You can take then the arms and rotate them all the way around. The arms also have an additional socket joint on the inside. There's a bicep swivel, so you can swivel it there. The figure has a double hinge on the elbow, so that's a nice touch to see. And the figure also has rotations in the hands, also back and forth this way too. Now with the Classified Series figures, the things about the legs. I'm not super crazy about the legs myself. I'm going to go ahead and just first of all remove the knife, which again is difficult to do, just so it's a little bit easier to actually split the legs. See, there you go. You can get about much better splits when the knife is gone. Now, the thing about the legs is that they also give you the option to drop them down. My guess is so you can get a little extra more mileage. You'd be able to move the legs forward and back a lot more, but then you'd always feel like you have to go back and keep pushing the legs back in. Even times that you're not really planning to move the legs, you may find yourself going in there and just always going back to push the legs back into the joints. Figure has a swivel, and the swivel is nicely concealed just above actually the scabbard that holds the knife. You can swivel it back and forth there. Figure has a double hinge on the knee. And he has articulation just above the boot, just above the shin guard we talked about earlier. Figure has articulation back and forth here on the foot, and also back and forth this way as well. And the figure does have toe articulation, or foot pegs on the bottoms of his feet. He doesn't have toe articulation, but foot pegs on the bottoms of his feet. Timbur, in case you were curious, I'm sure I already showed you already. The figure doesn't have peg holes on the undersides of his feet. Not that he really needs it anyways. Nice looking Snake Eyes. Nice looking Timbur. Not only do you get a whole bunch of accessories, not only just for Snake Eyes, but also for Timbur, the fact he has 2 swappable heads, which I am going to fix. I am going to fix before we actually get to final looks. The figure has everything that you would need to get a classic look for Snake Eyes. And already considering that we have ourselves the visored Snake Eyes from, I think, Wave 1 of the G.I. Joe Classified series, this now fits nicely that little gap that first Snake Eyes left behind, because we didn't get ourselves the classic look of Snake Eyes. You know, the one that didn't have any paint whatsoever when Hasbro had to forfeit some of the additional paint effects that they did add to that figure, resulted in, of course, Snake Eyes being the most popular figure of the G.I. Joe Real American Hero line. The only thing I think I would say to this figure is, while I do like the look of it, I hope at some point we are going to be getting ourselves kind of like this mold being done in the blue color scheme. Kind of the way that Snake Eyes looked from the original Mass Device miniseries, where sort of he first runs into Timbur. And now again, I'm trying to draw a blank here. Does anyone know how Timbur actually got his name? Because again, he goes back to the headquarters and I think they say, oh, is that Timbur? I'm going to have to go back and watch that episode again. Out of more curiosity than anything else, I ended up going back and rewatching the episode of G.I. Joe the Mass Device. I think it was part 4, where CoverGirl actually references the wolf's name. Says, Timbur, you're my kind of wolf. So I guess maybe that's where the name came from, and had nothing to do with Snake Eyes actually telling the team, oh, hey, by the way, my dog's name is Timbur. Hey, Snake Eyes, I never thought you could talk before. Timbur, though, going back to Timbur, finally I was able to get the head back in proper place. I don't know why I was struggling so much in this review, but just took a hairdryer, softened up the hole on the back, and then sure enough, it was easy to get that back onto a ball joint. But I'm thinking I'm probably going to display Timbur, though, in his more ferocious looking face. I think I just like the look of having the more visible teeth than the more neutral looking Timbur. And that's going to go really nice with the display of Snake Eyes. Now, I've got Snake Eyes here displayed with one of his guns and one of his knives, but one of the beauties of the G.I. Joe Classified series that you've seen in these reviews is the fact that, of course, all these figures come with so many accessories. It's really hard to kind of choose which ones to go with. In this case, for Snake Eyes, he really only has the options to house the knife, the small gun, and the silencer. Everything else he either has to have in his hand, or you have to display somewhere, so you have to kind of put in a little small container of all your other accessories, which is kind of what I'm doing with a lot of my G.I. Joe Classified series, because while some of the figures have extra accessories more than what they can really carry around with them, I'm just putting them in a smaller container for the time being, until, of course, I decide later I want to change up the way I have them on display. Snake Eyes looks good, though. Yeah, they probably couldn't change the color to this guy to blue because his outfit is a little bit different in the original G.I. Joe miniseries run. But yeah, I mean, considering that Timbur is part of this pack anyways as the Alpha Commandos, I'd be still cool with the idea if maybe they just removed like the vest and changed the color scheme of the rest of Snake Eyes' body to the blue that he has in that original Mass Device episode run, and then just re-release the figure. I think it's too good to have it just released once. And speaking of too good just to be released once, I think Timbur is too good of a figure, sculpt-wise and articulation-wise, just to only release the first time. The one I'm thinking of is Law and Order. Just re-release Timbur and just retool it slightly to give us that German Shepherd, I think, was part of Law and Order. But what do you guys think, though, of Snake Eyes and Timbur Alpha Commandos? Let me know down below in the comments section. A big thank you again to the folks over at Hasbro. Once again, that did provide the sample of the G.I. Joe Classified series Snake Eyes and Timbur, as well as the other G.I. Joe Classified series figures that we've been looking at as of late. For your video question for today, going back to the Mass Device, it doesn't have to necessarily be the Mass Device, but what is your favorite G.I. Joe miniseries from the original 80s run? It could be the Mass Device, it could be the Pyramid of Darkness, it could be the Weather Dominator, or it could be Arise, Serpentor, Arise. I guess technically you could put in Dragonfire as well, but we don't tend to talk about Dragonfire. But what is your favorite G.I. Joe miniseries run? I'm kind of torn. I am a big fan of the Weather Dominator, and I also really like the Mass Device. Pyramid of Darkness was good. I think that was the one that introduced Quick Kick. But for me, it's probably Weather Dominator first, then probably Pyramid of Mass Device. Let me know down below in the comments section, please and thank you. And if you are enjoying the content that you guys have been seeing as of late, especially the fact that we are doing G.I. Joe reviews as of late, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That is to say, of course, you haven't done so already. Make sure you turn on the bell notification so you get those friendly reminders whenever new videos are going to be popping up. And keep, yes, your peepers peeled, because even though we have wrapped up things right now for the Alpha Commandos, there is going to be more G.I. Joe Classified Series figure reviews coming your way. So make sure you're keeping your peepers peeled to this channel. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.